The opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Cable 14, its sponsors, or its shareholders, Cogeco Cable, Shaw Cable, and Source Cable Limited.
Welcome to the December 13th edition of Hamilton Talks. I am Larry Di Ianni, and Hamilton Talks is a community affairs program which speaks to prominent Hamiltonians and sometimes Hamiltonians who may not be as well known, but are also moving our community forward. And it's my great pleasure this evening to have as our guest Mr. Tim Simmons. Tim is a Hamiltonian from birth who lives in Ward 3 with his wife and 2 sons. He holds a diploma in loss prevention from Sheridan College and a degree in political science from Carleton University. Tim owns and operates Heritage Weddings and Coordinators in Hamilton. He contributes and or holds memberships with the RBG, Mission Services, Good Shepherd Centers, Canadian Club of Hamilton, Canadian Federation of Independent Business, Political Science from New York, and Eco Justice. Tim is also a volunteer coach with Hamilton's 5-on-5 flag football team, and he's the past local president of the Canadian Council of Canadians. He's also the chair of the Hamilton Wentworth School Board, and we welcome Tim Simmons to Hamilton Talks.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, the very first thing I have to do is congratulate you. You were just re-elected as chair of the board. How long is that tenure?
They're one-year terms, and we have a culture on our board with most chairs that you do 1 or 2 years at a time, and then renew that position. So this will be my second year at it.
And how did you enjoy your first year?
I learned a lot, actually, but I'm fortunate. I have a very strong board, and I have very helpful staff around me to help keep me in line in many ways, but you're only as good as the people around you, I believe, and we have a wonderful group of trustees that help me along, and
some of them have served for many, many years. I know, I think I know most of them, and of course the previous 2 chairs, Ray Mulholland and Judith Bishop, and Jessica Brennan yeah. as well. Very, very good chair also. Yes, yes. It is a strong experience board. But let me tell you, my experience, because I lived the educational world for many, many years, so I knew school boards. My experience is that trustees are overworked and underappreciated by communities. How would you assess that?
Well, that's certainly, if you read the newspapers and that, you'd certainly get that sense. I think on personal basis, we get a lot of positive feedback from parents, and when we're within schools. We have to tackle a lot of issues. This is a board that has decided to tackle the big issues. You know, we're at a sort of a convergence right now in our
So I want to talk about that, Tim, not to interrupt, because I do want to get to all of those big issues. But just in case people don't know, I mean, you are a politician. You're elected. You run when the municipal election occurs and people vote for their councillor, the mayor, and they also vote for their trustee.
That's right.
So tell us, what is the role of a trustee?
Well, the role of trustee is, foremost, is to advocate for children and for education, public education, and to help ensure the well-being of our children in our community. So, like other levels of politicians, when a parent needs to sort of maneuver the school board, their trustee is there to help them talk to the right person. You know, if you knock on the wrong door, you don't get anywhere. The trustee is there to help that. We're there to help set policy within our board. Strategic directions. We have very clear strategic directions around equity and accountability, and so those kinds of things help us move forward. We always look at the lens of the child and education, though. That's how, so when we have all these other competing interests that are bombarding us, and we hear about those all the time where somebody wants this, somebody wants this, we still have to keep our focus, our lens on children.
Okay, and that's encouraging to know that that is a focus that you maintain. You represent Ward 3, which is the same as the municipal councillors' ward, the same boundaries. And that's inner city Hamilton. Yeah. Lots of challenges in that ward. Tell us a little bit about the makeup of your ward.
Well, it's a very eclectic makeup, and it's very diverse. I got into the role as trustee in 2006 because I saw a lot of need within the ward. We have it's very middle class in parts, it's very wealthy in parts. We have high poverty in other parts. The way you might say housing has gone over the years, we have entire schools where we have poverty is in just about every family. So we have to put a lot of resources into the inner city to help lift these children and their families out of poverty. If you think of a school board or an education system, we're probably the most important part of any economy, of any sort of social, cultural makeup of a city or of a community, because we're there with the children, and we have a big influence on what we can do there. So I saw we put a lot of money into the inner city. That's where, when all the other boards in the province were focused on renewal and building in their suburbs, we were focused on our inner city, where we built 4 brand new elementary schools in the inner city. We've fixed up a number of the other older schools, like Memorial City. We've put millions into to upgrade it. Adelaide Hoodless, because these kids need a level playing field with everybody else, right? And that's the equity portion of it. So I really came into it to level the playing field. These kids deserve everything that the kids in the suburbs or other areas get.
Well, I have a particular affinity to Ward 3 because that's the ward I grew up in, on Cannon near Sherman. Okay. So I spent my youth going to schools in that ward, and a high school as well at what we used to call Central Collegiate, now Sanford School, and we'll talk about that because there's some plans for it as well, yes. Which is sort of controversial, which segues into some of the big issues you've been dealing with. I think that the school board has been very courageous in tackling those big issues, and they're tough issues because they've dealt with accommodations, which means school closures, and rebuilding as well as terminating the usefulness of an existing building. So tell us about that. What's the overall plan, and where are you in that plan?
Okay, so we're looking at an all-encompassing plan. We decided as a school board it wasn't good enough to do the easy approach, and that would have been just sort of manage the decline of the education system, because we had this convergence of technology, innovation going on within the greater society. We have declining enrollment happening as well. We still have some of the pains of amalgamation going on, and so we needed to modernize.
What do you mean the pains of amalgamation? Your school board was always amalgamated. Or no, we had the Wentworth
we had
and
the
the
Wentworth.
Hamilton.
That's right.
Okay.
We had the Wentworth. So
stand corrected.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
So you know, we have a lot of inventory, a lot of land around all that, and it cuts into the administration side of things. But we'll leave that for now. But what we decided was we needed to move on from the 20th century, where the education you and I had, and when you were in education, was more that industrial model. You know, we educate, and societies move like our machines move, right? And so we needed a much more innovative education system. Now, we get a pocket of money from the provincial government. We don't raise our own money or our own taxes.
You used to at one time, and that was very controversial.
Yes.
You had the ability to actually raise taxes to get your money.
That's right, and that would have changed the whole debate during this process on what do you want to pay. Well, we realized that we needed to consolidate our schools. We started with secondary and a little bit of elementary. We still have more to do, and in January we're going to be getting a facilities master plan to help move us to 2016 on where do we need to go as a school board, because you can't program when you have half-empty schools. And our secondary panel, we needed to, well, the board made a decision to reduce by 7 schools. That would bring us up into the 90%, 100% range with our schools, and then we can really program.
And that's the population of a school, 90% of the capacity of the school, right?
That's right.
And so right now some schools are probably running at even half, less than half.
We do have some of that. You just can't program for these kids. They need to be competitive in this world, and when you have a school with about 1,200 children, you can offer all sorts of curriculum that they don't even know about. The other thing we've learned from our children, our director was big with this because he had his director forums with the students where he went out and asked them, what do you want? What makes a great school? What makes a great high school? And we learned some things from our students. One of the things we learned was that they want to go to their neighborhood school. It's not as easy to do in this day and age because of declining enrollment. But certainly on the secondary level, they didn't want to be transported to a special program across the city. They wanted to go near their home. So we decided that we needed to make every school a great school. And as opposed to having schools with the ideal of, or the thinking that they were better than other schools. We want to create every school as a good school. So how do you do that? Well, I think what we're looking at for programming, and we're going to be coming in more with our program strategy in the new year, is we let the student body help pick the curriculum. Now you have your standard curriculum, but there are hundreds and hundreds of courses in the ministry's course book that nobody has even heard of. So we let the student body make the school a great school. And so that's one aspect of
so what in terms of facilities, in terms of accommodations, then it seemed to me that there was a pressure point up on the mountain. Did you solve that? What's the latest on that?
Well,
what's staying open? What's being built?
Yeah, what we're looking to close with ministry approval. We still need ministry approval to do all these things. Is close Hill Park, Barton, and Mountain, and build a new school south of the link.
South of the link, where the population is as well.
That's right. So it creates a triangle between Sherwood, McNabb, and the new school.
Right. And below the mountain?
Below the mountain, we're looking at closing Sir John A. Macdonald, Delta, Parkview, and opening up a new school somewhere in the center north. So in around sort of the precinct. And Ward 3, in the center between, because Westdale is so far to the west.
Right.
And then...
and what have you got? Sir Winston Churchill to the east?
Yeah. So you need something in the middle of those two.
And where would it be, more or less? Yeah.
Probably in Ward 3, actually, in that area. If we can get the property, if we can get ministry approval for these things. The other thing, too, is... and we've learned this on the elementary panel when we built brand new elementary schools. There's no comparison to a 20th century school than there is to a 21st century school. We need to remember that a child going into kindergarten today might see the 22nd century. And we haven't even defined the 21st. So,
my goodness.
Yeah.
and you mentioned when I was in school, and thank you for lumping me with you, but I was there many years before you. In fact, you know you're old when the schools that replaced your school are being closed. And that's where I find myself. And that's progress, I guess. Although quite controversial. School closures always are. But another controversy involved your administrative building, that venerable building that no longer exists, where there's going to be an even better building, I guess, in terms of the health center, across from City Hall on Main Street. Why did you decide that?
Well, excellent question. I was first elected in 2006, and I wasn't long in the seat there when staff came to us and said, we have to do something about this building. It needs millions of dollars worth of work. It's not suiting the needs. It's overcrowded. It was... from the outside, it looks like a nice sort of quaint building, very beautiful. But on the inside, sort of the working conditions were overcrowded. The technology from the 60s and 70s, well, any building that we have from the 60s and 70s always has problems around its energy use and that. So the board first thought, well, let's fix it up. And how much will it cost to fix it up? When we got those numbers back, we couldn't afford to do it. Again, we don't set the pay, we don't set the taxes, so we couldn't go to the public and say, if you want to keep this building, it's going to cost X amount of dollars. This is what it's going to be.
Do you remember?
It would have been close to what City Hall was. It was over $60 million.
City Hall was way more than that.
It was,
anyway,
yes, yeah. It was getting up in that kind of stratosphere. A lot of money for a school board because the ministry doesn't fund admin buildings. We have to fund it ourselves
by selling buildings,
by selling properties and buildings and that. So then we had a series of public consultations. There wasn't a big murmur. There's just a little murmur right now at this point. We had some people coming in and talking about trying to save the building. This is a good building worth keeping, but you're given a box to work in, and this was coinciding with everything else we were trying to do in our schools by creating a 21st century schools. We wanted to do the same thing on the administration side, so we looked at consolidating at that point, and we looked at trying to consolidate so we could close. What we've ended up doing is closing 6 buildings that had administration, some aspect of administration in them. 3 of those buildings could be used to help pay for the new Ed Center. The other 3 would go into schools. And
so where are you going then? Where is your new building?
Crestwood, up in the Crestwood site. Which,
okay, and that was, I mean, the part of the controversy was there's this whole bunch of people are leaving downtown.
Yes.
And I mean, we looked for ways to make downtown more active rather than less active.
We wanted to stay downtown so badly. That's why the process took 5 years, because we tried to partner and find a way with the city and with MAC, with some sort of a business case and plan. Ultimately, the Ministry of Education had a very narrow framework for what they want us to do. For them, we're in the business of education. They weren't very keen on having big partnerships and kind of grandiose plans in the downtown core. We had to do it on our own, and
you made the decision to go where you are.
Yes.
And right now you're temporarily in one of the downtown buildings.
2 of them, actually. We're in the Standard Life building and in the Stelco Tower.
Okay. And I knew that, and people are able to access. And you meet at City Hall for your board meetings.
That's right, we do.
So that's good.
Yes.
Listen, another controversial closure has to do with Sanford School, my old high school. On Sanford, and the plan is to knock down that very venerable building that actually looks quite imposing. And by the way, the pictures that we showed were taken by Reg Beaudry. I want to say thank you to Reg Beaudry of Urbanicity. Those pictures were at the public meeting you held in Sanford School, where you're trying to explain to the community why you were doing what you were doing. And what are the plans for that school? Okay,
so this goes back to 2003. Before I became a trustee, where it was basically put on the market, and there weren't any takers at that time. Fast forward to 2006, we're starting to, there's money from the province. We're starting to rebuild our inner city schools infrastructure. So on that property, we built Kathy Weaver, and it was important to begin there because it's one of the most needy neighborhoods in Hamilton. Great families, great parents, but there's a lot of stress in that neighborhood. They needed some really good programming in there. It's in conjunction with Pinky Lewis Arena. Very quickly, the Kathy Weaver Hub got formed between Pinky Lewis and Kathy Weaver School, and a lot of that had to do with Kathy Weaver herself, the police officer that
after whom the school was named,
That's
who
right.
tragically passed away.
Yes, so she cared about those kids and what was best for them. The plan was to keep Sanford open until we finished our renewal, so it would become the holding school while we built the new Dr. Davy, the new Prince of Wales, and Queen Victoria, and the Kathy Weaver community was very patient because they really wanted that green space.
So there's a park, because I want to talk about the teacher situation now, but there's a park that's going there now. And activists are saying, but people want to buy that building and reuse it, adaptively reuse it.
Yeah.
Why can't the board accommodate that if there are people willing to pay some money?
Well, I'd speculate. I'm not sure how much the board would get for that property. Like I said, we are focused on kids first.
Okay, green space, but there's Woodlands Park just across the street from Barton.
But the kids can't access that during school. They can't leave the school. We've already had one child get hit by a car crossing
it's a busy
this
street.
year. It's very busy. At recess time, right now, they have a postage stamp out back there, and the kids kind of push themselves. You're talking almost 700 children on a very small piece of land. It's rare for an inner city school to have any green space. And I became a trustee, to level that playing field, that equity in our system. And that is why...
but built heritage is also important.
It is,
okay?
absolutely.
And I mean, it is a gorgeous building. There's no question. Now, I tweeted when the Spectator actually said it's too late, the school board's plans are good. I tweeted the fact that it was in bad shape when I was a student there. And as you can see, I was a student there many, many years ago. So it would need lots of money. Yeah. But it's a gorgeous building. You got to feel a little bit sorry.
Absolutely. And from your past experience in politics, sometimes you got to pick the best out of a scenario that doesn't make you happy either way.
Well, so let's talk about that. We've only got a few minutes left. Right now, the province is embroiled in this situation where teachers in the public system, the Catholic school systems seem to be okay, which is another story that actually doesn't necessarily make those who are arguing look good. But anyway, the rotating strikes are beginning. I'm not sure whether our city is going to participate in those strikes or not. Have they been tapped yet on that?
We haven't heard at this point.
All right. At some point they might. Yeah. You were quoted in The Spectator just yesterday saying you don't want to get in the middle of the province and the teachers. Mm-hmm. But Mr. Chair of the Board, you are in the middle.
We are. What that quote was referring to is why we canceled extracurriculars and the field trips is because if we didn't have a uniform process across the system, we would have one thing happening at this school, another thing happening at this school. Parents wouldn't know what was going on.
But does that give in to, and I'm just playing devil's advocate, I have an educational background. Yeah. Does that sort of give in to one side? So when you say you don't want to get in the middle, you sort of have accommodated teachers by not having them disrupt programs. You've disrupted the programs. And how would you explain to somebody, and somebody said this to me, Tim Simmons was endorsed by OSSDF in the last election, the teachers union. So are you the honest broker in this, or are you taking sides?
Well, our board has a motion forward asking the province to repeal Bill 115. So when Bill 115 came in, it also interrupted the board's right for local negotiations within our own parameters. And that is why we have some similar grievances with the province as well. So at the same time, we need to make sure our kids are cared for. And we need to make sure that the classroom, when the kids are in class, that there's a feeling of normalcy there. And really that's what we're trying to manage. We're trying to communicate. We're telling parents to look at the board website. We'll be sending messages home with the kids in the backpacks. Don't listen to all the rumors. We'll let you know what's going on when we hear something. So local bargaining is important. It's important to the board. It's our mandate as trustees, and it's important to our union groups.
Well, listen, we've run out of time and we've just opened up a whole new topic. Tim, I want to wish you continued good luck. You are doing a good job. Teachers are extremely important to education. Education is the most important legacy we can give our kids. So be nice to teachers.
Absolutely.
And be nice to principals because they keep the mechanism going as well.
Absolutely.
Thanks for being on Hamilton
Thank you.
Talks.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for watching Hamilton Talks. We've been in conversation with Mr. Tim Simmons, Chair of the Hamilton-Wentworth District School Board. And please tune in next week when we will be in conversation with none other than Santa Claus. Yeah, the real guy.